Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today's guest is Cathy Sharpe. She is a grief and trauma recovery counselor, health and mindset counselor, TEDx speaker, creator of the Vibrant Living Method. She is changing the paradigm of grief and trauma healing by prioritizing healing, movement, self-care, and love. Welcome, Cathy. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So please share with us your story. Who is Cathy?
So my story as far as a single parent starts a long time ago. It starts almost a decade ago. I found myself as a single mom of two boys. During that divorce, I was also caring for my sister who was on hospice. So I had been a stay-at-home mom for a long time, as some of us are when we're married with children. So when I found myself divorced, I was in this moment of I've been at home for all of these years raising children. I'm taking care of my sick sister. What do I do now? And I think we all end up like that when we let go of a marriage, when we leave a marriage, we're we have our children, and then it almost feels like I picture it in my mind, we're standing in the middle of this big forest with our suitcases and we don't know which direction to go. We don't know how to get out of this forest or this broad land. And um and it really it almost comes at you from every direction. It's like mom, divorce, work, going back into the work and trying to figure out a new routine. And in that, then we also have to rediscover who we are as women, because for so long we were wife and mother, and now we're mother and who's Cathy? Who is she? Because for all of these years, she's been something else. She's been attached to something else. So my discovery came in that. I lost my sister shortly after that, and I moved out to a different state for a job. And then when my children would leave for the summer, it was asking myself that question all over again. My children left for the summer to go see their dad. And it's like, oh my goodness, I'm not a wife. I'm not a mom during the summer. What do I do? And I remember that first summer that my children left me to go spend the summer with their dad. I laid on the couch all summer long. I didn't do anything because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to start because all of my identities were gone. Mom was gone, wife was gone, caregiver of my sister was gone. And I was just left standing there. Actually, I was left laying there on the couch trying to figure out what I needed to do next. In all of that, I was able to finish school, and that was a big priority of mine. But by the next time my children left for the summer, I started to figure out who I was. I became into this new routine, and I found myself joining every club I could possibly join. So Cathy was in a book club, and then she was in a rock climbing club, and then she was hiking, and then she was doing all of these things to kind of figure out exactly who she was. And I've been divorced for about 8.5 years now. And it's taken that 8.5 years to really get a grasp of who I am and what I enjoy doing outside of being a mom, outside of being a business owner, outside of doing all of these things. Because I feel like as women, we're defined by all of these things. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a mom. Well, that's not who you are. Who are you at your core? What do you enjoy doing? And I've discovered that, bumps along the way of what I enjoy doing outside of being a mom. I enjoy hiking. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy crafting, and I enjoy all of these things. So I can actually say that with pride. Outside of being a business owner and a mom and a caregiver, I know exactly who Cathy is. Cathy enjoys all of these things in life. But I think as moms, especially as single moms coming out of divorce, and whether your children leave on a weekend or you alternate weekends or whatever it is, when you're sitting by yourself and you're alone in your kitchen or you're on your couch like I was, and you're like, what in the world do I do with myself? It took a long time to figure that out, because like I said, we are kind of defined by all of those titles that we are given, that we choose to take on, but then I feel like they consume us and we are left with nothing of ourselves. We are left with mom, wife, or mom, divorced business owner, and then there's nothing left inside of us. So I work with a lot of women and we focus on that and I loved having those conversations with women, like, how did you find yourself again? What is your title? And that's my favorite question to ask someone is, who are you? Don't tell me I'm a mom and I'm a business owner. I know those things. That's not who you are at your core. I have some amazing conversations by opening the floor up with that question. That was a great question, Irina.
Yeah, and it's like you telling my story.
Yeah.
I'm also eight. No, my son is 8 years old and divorced, I think, 6 years. But you basically were telling my story, how rediscovering and enrolling in all the different clubs. I was part of Toastmasters, and then I went dancing Argentine tango. I started painting. I started singing. I started doing personal development and learning and reading, just like you were sharing. So very, very resonate with your message that for many years we define ourselves as someone else's mom, someone else's wife, but who are you at your core? We often lose track of those things because we have that identity crisis. I was this
Yeah.
person. Who am I now? What are my likes and dislikes? What makes me angry? What makes me sad? We get to discover that, and we get to open this new chapter of our life and redefine what it is. We can start as new. We don't have to go back in the past. We can create something right here, right there.
Absolutely.
Is all the things, let's say we were dying or waiting to try, we can finally do so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think you make a good point. It is an identity crisis because we have no time to figure out who we are. It's all about extracurriculars and homework and cooking, and then you have laundry, and then someone needs to take out the trash, and the dog pooped in the, like, there's all of these things, and you're like, yeah, I enjoy extracurriculars, but do you really? Like, if you weren't a mom, would you go to these? No, nobody would be doing all of this stuff. So it is so much fun, and it's exciting, and it's terrifying to go through all of these stages to figure out what you truly enjoy. Do you really like mac and cheese, or do you only like it because your kids eat it? And like, all figuring out all of those things that become second nature to a lot of people. But when you're just enthralled in and enveloped in being a wife and a mom and a caregiver and it really does, but that and takes over, and figuring out who we are is, like I said, it's exciting, it's terrifying, but it's also empowering and freeing and beautiful. It's a beautiful process.
Yeah. So what makes you happy?
Outside of being a wife and mother, or outside of being a business owner and mother, you see what I did there? I love being outdoors, whether it's just sitting. Sometimes I just go out there and I don't do anything and I just stare off into space, whether I'm, taking a few minutes to just be in the sun because I work at my desk all day, or just to sit there and just to take a break. But I love being outdoors. I love hiking. I love traveling. And that's pretty much all of my things that I love to do in just a beautiful little nutshell. So if it's outdoors, if I can hike it, if I can travel to it, it's something I enjoy.
Awesome. How do you help people?
Professionally, I am a grief and trauma recovery counselor, and I automatically, you think grief counselor as in I lost someone to death, and it's not always that. It really can be after a divorce. We are, depending on the divorce, can be traumatized and suffer a lot of grief after our divorce. It's sometimes it's this long drawn out process, and it can take a toll on us. Losing a job that you've put so much work into, so many years into, it can cause this grief that we're left with, the loss of a pet, a relationship, and that includes a friendship. You know, you can go your entire life being best friends with someone, and then you break up with that person, and you're kind of left with this loss, this empty hole that you had. So it's not just grief, it really is, or death, it really is just everything that can cause grief. And how, whatever causes that for you, that's not for anyone to say, no, that doesn't count as grief. If it causes you grief or trauma, then it's absolutely valid and it's important to address. So I not only work with women to work through all of those emotions, but discover who they are at their core on the outside of that. So once you work through childhood trauma, a traumatic event, current grief or past grief that you've just kind of pushed down and have left unresolved, we figure out who you are with that, without that baggage. And we really work closely together to build confidence and clarity and empowerment through all of that at the end.
I love it. I think this is very important work. That's what I do as well. You know, releasing the negative, releasing the past, figuring out who you are without all that baggage. Because on the outside, we are all pieces of a whole. We are not broken. We just forgotten who we are. And I think that work allows us to rediscover, to peel back the onion layers and get back into the core. So
absolutely.
What were some of the things, as you became a single parent, what were some of the challenges that you faced? Or was everything smooth, right? And you
Oh my gosh, no, it's not smooth. I don't know anyone that had a smooth like transition to becoming a single parent. Like that would be some of my biggest challenges were going back into the work field. You know, I was a stay-at-home mom for a few years. And not only was a stay-at-home mom caring for my children, but I was homeschooling them and I was caring for my sister who was on hospice at the same time. So I went through this divorce and straight into having to go to work full time and take care of my children and take care of my sister. And I was in a state where I had no family. And it was difficult. It was a very trying to find my footing. I almost felt defeated because it's like, who wants to hire this mom? You know, looking back now, it sounds crazy, but when you go into it, it's like, who's going to hire me? I have 2 kids at home. I haven't worked in years. Like, what can I offer someone? So getting over that limiting belief that I had nothing to offer, that I couldn't do anything, and trying to figure out and really empower myself to say, I can do this. I can do hard things. But the biggest challenge was making that transition back into the workplace from, you know, being comfortable almost and being able to just care for my family. And it was care for my family and, oh my gosh, if you don't do it, then no one's going to do it. That was the biggest challenge, is figuring out my way in the world, and not just that, but also figuring out who I was at the same time.
Yeah. I wasn't a stay-at-home mom, but I can relate into the fact that everything now rests on your shoulders.
Yes.
You're like this person, like you cannot get sick, you get no vacation days, you get no timeouts. You gotta be on. If the kids are sick, you gotta be on. You cannot get sick.
Yeah, and you have to be on time, and you can't be running late ever, and there's no such thing as a bad day. And again, it's and you can't be sick, and you can't have a headache, and you can't say I need a break or I need some time out, or I don't feel like cooking tonight. It's like, okay, then we're not eating. Then I guess that's what's happening tonight. So it really, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it was a lot of things that I didn't, and I was the one that filed for divorce. So I had to keep reminding myself, you did this. Like, you made the decision to move your family. You made the decision. So every time I felt like I couldn't do it, I reminded myself, you can, because you chose to. And it was a battle between myself of, you know, I was constantly fighting with myself to say, you can't fail because you did this. Like, you can't fail. You chose to leave. You chose this life. You chose to, and that was just a constant reminder that I had to succeed. That means that I had to work harder. That means I had to be the best superwoman that anybody had ever met in their life, because I had no choice. And it was the life that I chose.
Yeah, yeah. Knowing what you know now, what kind of advice would you tell that person? Tell yourself.
Oh man. Um, I would tell her, oh, that's a good question. What advice would I tell her? I would tell her to trust herself more. She didn't trust herself as much as she should have. She really underestimated herself in a lot of areas, and told herself that she couldn't, it was a lot of negative self-talk sometimes, to say, you did this and who do you think you are, and this isn't gonna work. And it was a lot of battling back and forth. And I wish I could just tell her to um that that she was going to come out on the other side, but believe in herself, believe in her own strength, because I think we're always stronger than we are. We just don't believe we are. So we get in our own head to say, look, what are you doing? And I think we have to sometimes just get out of our head. It's what I tell my clients, it's our inner mean girl. We all have this inner mean girl in our head to say, and she perches up on our shoulder sometimes and she's like, who do you think you are? And you can't do that. And why would you post that? And why would you go there? Why would you make that decision? And sometimes we just gotta knock her off our shoulder, get her out of our head, and bring in our like inner queen and say, you can do this. You just gotta do it, and don't be scared. It's almost like jumping and not looking. So I wish I could tell her that she was stronger than she thought she was.
Definitely, definitely. If I would say the same.
Yeah.
Even in yourself more, and don't I call it, don't listen to others,
Yes.
especially people who have not gone through the journey that we've both been on, and
Yeah.
trust themselves more, because we oftentimes rely on others' help, advice to lead our lives, and sometimes it's not in your best intentions.
It's not. And
They're coming from a great place to help you, but they don't really know how you feel.
yeah, I finding your circle of people who, we always think we want this circle of strong, women in our life that are going to encourage us and push us, and just think that you're the most magical person. But sometimes we need women in our life to say, stop that. Don't do that. That's not you. It's not getting you to your goals. Why would you do that? So I think there has to be that balance of really watching who you bring into your circle, and do they understand you? Do they have your best intentions in mind, or are they only there to subtly sabotage and make you feel bad and not understand who you are? And I think it's important to really watch those certain people who are coming into your circle, because I think you're right. If they don't really understand and they don't have your best intentions, it's going to do way more harm than it would good.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
Confidence, work ethic. I have a long list, but do you want to just know one?
If you had to pick from the list, what do you think is the most important one?
Oh, the most important. Oh man, that one's a hard one. I think self-belief, again, because I think with self-belief comes the confidence and comes power. And I think if you just instill this belief, to believe in themselves and really, like we said, get out of your own head and stop limiting what you can do just because someone says you can't do it, or your neighbor didn't do it, so why would you be able to do it? Like, to believe, to really focus on self-belief.
I like that. Yeah, I think it's the most important thing, because once they have that, then sky is the limit.
It is, yeah.
What kind of any fun projects you working on now that you want to share?
I have a lot of fun projects going on. I am a project queen. One of my biggest things that I'm so excited right now in 2 weeks, so in less than 2 weeks, I'm actually hosting a virtual retreat, a wellness retreat for men and women. It's not just for women, because there are single dads out there. There are men caregivers who are taking care of his parents, taking care of his sick wives, taking care of sick children. So if you're a parent, if you're a caregiver, of disabled, chronically ill children, family members, and you feel like, we do as caregivers and parents and going out to the world, and you feel like everything's coming at you all at one time, and you feel overwhelmed and stressed and overworked, and you just don't know where to go and what to do. And when I went out, into the world as a single mom, and a caregiver, it was this overwhelming, you have those moments where you just kind of sit on the bathroom floor and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next. I'm so stressed out. I'm overwhelmed. Everything needs something from me. Everyone wants me. And it just gets overwhelming and it drains us. And we have to remember that if we're not caring for ourselves, we can't care for our children. We can't work. We can't care for the people that need us. We can't do all of the stuff that we want. We can't be Superwoman if we're not prioritizing. We can't be Superman if we're not prioritizing ourselves. And it's really easy to put our health, mental health, our emotional health, our physical health on the back burner as caregivers and parents. It's so easy, and to just push through it, push through the pain, push through the, all of the things we have to push through. But taking 30 minutes a day to sit and prioritize ourselves, whether that's prayer or meditation or just sitting and staring off into space like I do sometimes outside, eating a healthy meal so that you can keep up your strength, because there's a reason the airlines tells you to put your mask on first, right? Because you can't help anyone around you. You can't help your children. You can't help your spouse or your neighbor if you're unconscious on the floor because you forgot to care for yourself. So this virtual retreat that's launching in a couple weeks is just for that. It starts every morning with a beautiful friend of mine, Leslie. She's hosting sound bowls. She's doing meditation and yoga. We talk about nutrition, wellness, stress management, food. We talk about all of these things, and it runs for 5 days straight. And it doesn't have to be done live. You can do it at 3 o'clock in the morning if that's when you're up and that's the time you have. You can do it at 2, like whenever it fits into your life. It really is built to fit into a busy caregiver's life. And then in the evening, we do meditation and emotional release and breath work. And we have a beautiful another colleague of mine that's hosting guided journaling to really work through all of the things that come at us as busy, stressed out, overwhelmed caregivers. And she's doing that every evening. So that's one of my babies right now. That's my baby project. It's my very first virtual wellness retreat, and I'm stoked to host it and stoked to be able to offer it to so many different people. And then so I'm going to leave it with that one. I do have many, many other things like cooking and simmering on the stove, but that's the one that's coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm super proud of it.
Awesome. And I love it. I think self-care is important. Just like you cannot expect a mango tree to produce an orange.
Exactly.
What do you give off to other people if you are depleted, if you're running on low, if you are expected to take care of them, but what kind of taking care can you do if you didn't first fulfill your own bunny battery?
Yeah, you can't do anything. And it leaves us and I know myself, because when I'm overwhelmed and stressed, I'm a snippy mom. I'm short-tempered. I snap at my kids. I raise my voice. I'm not the best that I can be for our family. I'm not the best that I can be for my clients. I'm not the best that I can be for our neighborhood. It really does. It benefits everyone to really care for yourself, even if you're just taking a small amount of time every day. And I know how easy it is to make excuses and be like, I don't have time for that. But if you're acting like that and you're mad like that, then you have to make time, because your kids don't deserve your stress. Your kids don't deserve your worst self. They don't deserve that part of you. They deserve the best, and you yourself deserves the best self that you have.
Totally. Yeah. What is the smallest thing you've done that had the biggest impact in your life so far?
Make time for me. Really focus on my own health, my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, really focusing on my own well-being, because I was the first person that would tell you, when I was married, to say, nope, my husband comes first, my kids come first. I have to clean a house. The lawn needs to be mowed, and I have to make all these meals. But then I was left with nothing of myself. I didn't I had nothing for myself, and it did not make me a good person. I was angry and I was stressed out. Um, and then going into being a single mom, it was even worse because I had more stress and I had more things coming at me. And the smallest thing is putting my foot down and saying, no, I'm going to my room for 15 minutes, or I'm going outside for 15 minutes, or I'm taking a break. And saying that to my children, to say, I'm making this space for me, or I'm going to take a shower. Do not knock on the door unless someone is actively bleeding a lot of blood. Do not bother me while I'm doing these things. I need a break. So putting my foot down and really creating space and making space and holding those space and boundaries for myself, saying no to friends, saying no to family, saying no to things that was going to, push that boundary and make me feel stressed out, was the biggest thing that I did for myself. And it has made the biggest impact in my life.
So true. I can relate in the same regard. I'm a big believer in the morning routine. Doesn't
Yes.
matter when you wake up, but how you wake up. What do you do in that first hour of the day before the world takes on its challenges and throw them at you?
Yeah, exactly.
So totally agree with you. I think it's amazing, and it's could make a big deal. We might think nothing of it, but it is actually a great deal that feeds our soul, that allows us to be present, active, alive, and not snapping at each other.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It makes you feel you're able to wake up and you regain that confidence that you may have lost. During a divorce, we lose a lot of confidence in ourselves. We lose a lot of ourselves um, during a loss of anything. And and we really need to rebuild that, recharge our batteries. We have to rebuild that empowerment, and we can't do it if we're not creating space for ourselves.
Yes, totally. What is your personal superpower, would you say?
I always say that my superpower is the counseling that I offer my clients as a grief counselor. I was able to turn traumatic experiences that happened in my life. I was able to turn that pain and that hole that I was left with into my superpower, to be able to help and heal and empower other women that are going through the same thing.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, thank you. How did your kids take the divorce when it happened?
My oldest son was 14. So it's a difficult time at 14 years old anyway. You're a teenager, you have all of these things going on yourself. Um, it was really difficult for him. My youngest son was 3 or 4. I think he was more like 3. So he didn't really understand. Nothing has changed for him at 3 years old. There really wasn't much in his life that was interrupted. He had, Elmo on TV, and he had his, slippers, and that those parts of his life didn't change much. But my oldest son, it at the time was very, very, very difficult, because I was the one that filed for divorce, because we were a very strict religious household. It took him by surprise. It really knocked him to the ground. He was mad at me for a long time. Um, there was times in our life, that he didn't even want to call me mom, because I'm the one that broke our family apart. I'm the one that chose to leave. He's a man now. He's 22. He sees things very differently now. He sees my side of it. He respects my side of it. He respects the woman that I became on the other side of it. But there was a couple years there that it was detrimental to our relationship, to our mother-son relationship. I was the bad guy for a long time. So that was hard. It challenged a lot of things that he believed in. It challenged a lot of who he thought he was. But now that he's a man and he understands it from a man's perspective, he respects the decisions I made. He respects the mountains I moved for my children. And he respects those boundaries that I set for us as a family.
And what helped you get through those challenging years?
Between my son and I really had to prioritize our relationship more than anything else. So because it was such a challenging time, specifically for him, which means I needed to build him up. I needed to spend time with him. So I really focused, and I really, really focused on nurturing our relationship as mother and son. I needed to rebuild that confidence in him. I needed to rebuild our respect for each other. I needed to rebuild a lot that I broke down. And I think because I focused solely on my relationship with my two boys, and taking care of them and not anything else in the world, that's why, the relationship that we have now is so tight. It's so close. We have this beautiful mutual respect and love relationship, but it takes so much work. It takes so much effort. We had bi-weekly date nights, just the two of us. We would go out and do something together. And we spent a lot of time together, and we spent a lot of time focusing on healing together.
Yeah. What was one of your favorite activities when you would go on those bi-weekly days? Did you go like
So
climbing?
he is my shopping partner. He loves to shop. So, and we didn't necessarily always go shopping, but we would always go out to eat, and then we would go to a store or a mall or something. We would drive around at night and just listen to music, like turn the radio up and the windows down and drive around. Now he drives me around because he's a man. So when we have date nights now, he drives the car and I get to relax and enjoy the view. But we always go out to eat. We always, walk around and look at stuff, and it doesn't have to be big, it's never anything grand, but it always just is time together, and that's what matters. But it's pretty consistent. We have a meal together and we talk over our meal. We're not looking at our phones. He's not on his phone. He's very respectful on that, in an age of all the young people are constantly have this phone in their face, but we focus on each other. And even now we do. We had a date. He's in a different state from me, and I was visiting him not too long ago, and his friends called and said, "Hey, let's go out." And he's like, "I'm with my mom. I'm out with my mom tonight." And he, that was his boundary. That was, I always I created that boundary. I created that respect when he was younger, and now he's doing it in return for me as he's older. And when he was younger, my friends were like, "Let's go for a girls' night." Like, no, I'm with my son tonight, or I made plans with my son. So I love that I'm able to see the tables turned, and his friends are like, "Let's go out tonight." He's 22. He doesn't want to be with his mom on a Saturday night, but he totally was like, "No, I'm going out with my mom. I have plans with my mom." So it's simple things, but I think it's the time that counts, not really what you're doing.
Yes, so true. It's the time, because time is so fleeting.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
No, I think, the biggest thing that I want to say for single parents, whether your audience isn't just women, right? It's everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as single parents, regardless of where you are, it really is, I think, because you're right, time is so fleeting. It goes by so fast. If you look at it on like a scale of summers, I homeschooled my kids for a long time, but and you look at it like there's 18 summers that we get with our kids, and they're off to college, they join the military, they do, they're grown-ups now, they want to go off and do their own thing. but if you look at it like 18 summers that we get with them, like, oh my goodness, that's not a lot of time. That's such a short amount of time. And it goes by so fast, especially when we're busy, especially when we're building a business or building a career. Create those strong boundaries with your family and really create space. Not like, oh, we're at extracurricular activities and we have all this stuff going on. Like, there really needs to be these this time, this sacred time that you have one-on-one with your kids, healing together, especially if there's been a divorce, especially if there's been a loss, if there's been something traumatic, but healing together as a family, talking together, being together, sharing meals together. And I think really creating those boundaries together is going to be powerful for your relationships moving forward, and soaking it in, because it goes by so stinking fast.
Yes, yes. Sometimes I feel like when we were younger, we felt the time go slower, and now
Yes.
as we get older, maybe it's the technology speeds
Yeah.
along. You turn around and the years gone by.
Yeah, you're like, when did you become a man and move out? I don't even know how that happened. Weren't you like 5 yesterday? I know. Man, it goes by so stinking fast.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. I think I can talk to you for hours.
I could talk for hours, let me tell you. Thank you for having me, Irina. I loved it. I loved every second.
Yeah, you're welcome. If people would like to connect with you, where would they go?
My website, they can connect with me there. It's CathySharpe.com. Cathy's with a C, A-T-H-Y. Sharpe has an E at the end. Or I'm on all social media platforms. You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and there's another one, Instagram. So I'm on all of those places. So if you're not a websiter, but you are on a social media, then you can find me there.
Awesome. And we're going to include everything in episode notes. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story and your wisdom. And I think the work you're doing is very important and so needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.